A lot of architects are introverts because they're creatives, especially here in the US. All they want to do is work on their computers and forget about business development. Project delivery is their focus and they don't have time to do the things. Welcome to the Architect My Business podcast. I'm Aya Schlachter, your host, founder and CEO of MGS Global Group. We provide architectural drafting and rendering services for busy firm owners and designers. From starting out solo to now leading a team of over 45 and growing, I've learned a thing or two about making a business thrive. Whether you're thinking of starting, already managing, or want to take your business to the next level, this podcast is for you. Each episode is packed with simple, actionable tips in leadership, people, marketing, processes, and of course, profit. I keep things real. Like you, I've got no time for fluff. This podcast is brought to you by MGS Global Group. Now, let's get into this episode. Hi, Johan. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Architect My Business podcast. I know your schedule is super packed and we've been trying to get this date on the calendar. So I appreciate you making time for this conversation. So I've been diving into your work over the past weeks and looking through your projects, reading articles, publications, magazines, and checking out your studio site. And honestly, I'm very impressed about the consistency and the depth of everything that you do, from being a
Thank you.
teacher, a mentor, to recognition of your firm has received, including being a finalist at Architizer ANA Awards as the best small firm.
Yeah.
And it's really clear that what you're building goes beyond just beautiful homes. You're building a sustainable practice, which is why I was very excited that you agreed to be on the podcast. And also, we came across the house that you designed. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly. Ingso?
Yeah. Everyone that gets everyone who's not from Sweden. It's pretty. I would understand. It's Ingfär, so it's kind of hard to pronounce.
What, sir?
Ingfär, like
Ingre.
I don't know, like a sound.
Ingre.
Ingfär. Yeah. That's good.
Ingre.
Yeah, that's good. Greg, you got it.
Yes. I speak a little German, so
Okay.
you too, right? Anyway, so it completely caught my eye. So it's like there's something so serene about that house, and I just kind of want to live there. So I'm really excited to dig into your story, your design philosophy, and let's get started. But before we get started, just I know this is so dumb, but I gotta ask:
hmm
do you eat meatballs in Sweden for real?
Yeah, we do. We do. We eat a lot of meatballs, but it's not super uncommon, as you probably know, in Germany or in Italy either. It's just Swedish meatballs in IKEA. That's kind of what we eat. We eat it probably once every other week or so in my family.
Really? Oh, really? I didn't want to ask because, but I figured you're my first Swedish architect that I met. So I might as well just ask, right? And they're really good in IKEA. We don't have an IKEA in Cleveland, but nearby, like an hour away, we do. Also, I've been looking into your culture and all the things, and I'm a big coffee person. So I want to hear more about your Fika culture. Is that something you do at work too? Like, is that everyone in Sweden? They do that?
Yeah, there's Fika. There's even I think in like people who are employed by the state, which are then also people who are in the hospitals since they are state owned and so on. Everyone has a Fika moment, which is basically a coffee break. I mean, that's what it is. It's a coffee break. It's just a social event as well. And there's even one like that's on a Pacific time at 9:30, and there's one at 2:30 every day. That's even scheduled, and it's even free. Like that, you would get 15 minutes where you can have the fika with your work mates, and it's not counted in the hours of the day. So, so it's pretty real.
Can I work for you?
But then we have really good coffee. I think any architectural firm who tries to do something good would have really good coffee and really good like breakfast at work, which would be a fika then as well. That can also be like a fika can be sweet things, but it can also be like bread and sandwiches and stuff, and that's always provided by the employer. So it's very
I
real.
was in New I was in New York and my cousin's apartment has a coffee shop called Fika. I didn't know what it was, and now that I'm researching it, and I go there every day when I'm in the city.
Yeah.
It's a very tiny third wave coffee shop, and
Oh, nice.
now I know.
But you have some great coffee shops in the US, I think. But I mean, when we go in Europe, we have a project right now in the south of Sicily. And those Sicilians, they also love coffee and coffee breaks and stuff. But when they're coming to the build site, they're always yelling like, Fika, Fika. But that's, I just realized The reason why they think that's so funny is that that word almost means like female genitalia in Italian. So that's why they like it so much. But anyway, they have really good cannoli there. So they have good fika too.
Oh, wow. That's great. I know that fika is reverse for coffee. Coffee.
Yeah, that's right.
Was you
Coffee.
about it?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Mhm.
that's all. That's all I know about your culture for now.
Okay. That's maybe enough. Otherwise, it's kind of bland.
I don't think so. IKEA, you gave IKEA and Spotify, right? Spotify founder is because I was reading about Sweden and there are a lot of tech people there and Spotify originated in Sweden, the founder. So
But also Skype, I think, and Minecraft and lots of things like that. So there is a lot of innovation and a lot of companies that have their own, like tech companies would set up small units. There's even a couple of units here in Lund for Apple and things like that. So it is interesting in that way, I think.
so Lund is near the capital. What is it in terms of geography in Sweden?
Well, Sweden is one of Europe's longest countries with like 3,000 kilometers or something, which if you'd extend the length of Sweden from where we live, which is at the southern tip, you end up somewhere in the Mediterranean almost. So it's very long. And the capital, Stockholm, is in the middle of Sweden. So well, it's not even in the middle, but it feels like that to us because we're in the south. So we're actually much closer to Copenhagen. Lund is very close to Copenhagen. It's just 35, 40 minutes away over a bridge that goes over the Öresund Strait, and then you're in Copenhagen. So I think our architectural culture here is a little bit more Danish and more continental than in Stockholm.
The demographic, is it like a main city or city vibe or what is it like?
Lund is like a small university. It's more like Berkeley or something. And then Malmö is the largest city here, which is then like 300,000 maybe. And then Stockholm is 1.5 million. But the Copenhagen area is much more densely populated, being around sort of 1.5 million. So, but since it's a different country, we're not super involved with them, but we do have, it's not like it would have been quite different if we had been the same country. But all Scandinavian countries interact a lot. The languages are very similar, culture is very similar. So historically, it's been close. Lots of people marry over and things like that.
So do you speak German? Because I know you went to school in Germany as well, in Austria.
Yeah, I do speak German. Yeah. When I was a kid, you could either learn French as your third language, then, sort of. So Swedish, English, of course, would start really early. And then you choose between French and German. And I learned German and went to Germany a lot to study and do fun things. German culture is very close also. So, and it's close geographically. So I've been to Germany a bit and we're going on a study trip now. I think the whole office is going to Munich and that area in the fall. We do a study trip every year with all of the studio.
Yet you're 14 people now?
We're actually more like 16 now, and then there are some people who are kind of coming in and out from parental leave and consultants that we work with full time, but it's around sort of 16, which feels really crazy now after I started sitting like in my student's room basically already back in sort of 2002, 2003, maybe. And before that, I was working in Stockholm. So I started school, architecture school in 97, but then immediately I felt like I wanted to do my own work. So I was going and doing graphic design and different small jobs for builders already as a student. And I went to Stockholm to work on competitions for different companies.
It's interesting because according to your website, at 19, you found your way to architecture school. That's so young. And then you got your first job because of your thesis project. And how old were you when you got that thesis done and then it got built?
I was like 27, so actually it took a long time from when I started because I was always taking breaks, going out to do things. I mean, I think I started too early maybe because I should have had like a gap year or two, I think. So I had my gap years in between kind of in the studies. I went in and out of school doing different jobs for architectural firms and other things. I also worked with TV sets and scenography and things like that. So I think my approach to architecture is not as strict and it's more about feeling than it is about strict kind of tectonic rules or rules that have to do with whatever is technical. I'm more interested in kind of spaces and the atmospheres and what you can do with that. And then if the building structurally makes sense or is kind of hard to do is secondary to me, I think. And that's because I came out of graphic design and set design, I think.
Yeah, because I can see that in even your website. And the detail that you put in your photo shoots. Like, for instance, I'm looking at this Stockholm residence. It's different from what your typical projects, right, of the country homes and the vacation homes.
Well, that's true.
Big diverse,
Mhm.
yeah.
That apartment is, I mean, that's a different kind of a different vibe that we're doing with our private clients for high-end luxury interiors. And that client, they wanted super high-end kind of Scandinavian Italian vibe with influences from Milan, things like that. And we follow the client, and this client in this case is super interested in those things. So we try to dial them down into what you're seeing there, actually. So that's
Oh, really? Because it looks very elaborate. I mean, the white chair, the photo shoot, and all the even the Chanel purse hanging on the.
in that apartment, we wanted to create. That's a couple in Sweden who are quite in the public eye, and they're always traveling and flying places and doing things. We wanted to create something that felt grounded with materials that they could not get in hotel rooms and stuff. So it's all about having crafted things like that. In that room that you're talking about, there's a hand woven silk wallpaper that's from the UK that's been mounted onto these paper backings and then put up on the walls from James Hare. And that's the kind of things we really wanted to go into that level of luxury and detail and craftsmanship for them so that it would really feel like home. They could really love it in a way that you can't when you just go into some luxury place that's just somehow not private. So
Yeah, because I pulled it up here because when I saw your website, most of the houses have similar aesthetic. And then I clicked on this and it seemed like very high-end luxury, like Milan fashion, like a celebrity home. So when did that transition happen? Like,
as we've been growing, we've gotten these clients that are in that field, and we have to follow when we do interiors, which we don't do every day. There's one interior team that I work with, and Michaela Brach is my lead on these luxury interiors, and we can rarely show them. So we actually do them for clients, but it's not often that we get to photograph them. So that's why this one stands out because it's one of the ones that we could actually document and show, which I'm really grateful for. The client let us in there and let us do it. So therefore, it's down. I would like to do more of those jobs. And we do have a few clients now who are interested in that, who want the whole full package. Every, mm, mm. Well, no, but I mean, that's true. And I think we want to follow the client into their taste and try to refine it and try to remix it for them to so that it makes sense for them and that it works for a long time and that the choices are curated. And I think I have this, I mean, we're house architects in the sense that we've come out of school, architecture school. Most of the people who work here, and we talk about the house all the time, right? But actually, what I say to my friends and what I say to my clients, half jokingly, is that for a project to work, there needs to be an interior, a really good landscape slash garden project, and then there needs to be a house. And if you can only choose two out of the three, me personally, I would choose the garden and the interior and have the house super basic, like a really, like any kind of prefab, normal, old, standard house with a beautiful garden with a great interior. I'd rather have that than a house without a garden, where when you look out, you just see gravel or something, which is when the gardens aren't done yet, it's just not there. But you're supposed to be in the house, right? And you're supposed to enjoy the garden. In all my house, it's about being in contact with nature and feeling the garden. So if I were to like, I would rather just skimp on the house. And I just say that as a joke because we're doing the houses usually, but I actually think it's true. And I think in the interior project, the art becomes a big part of that as well. So if you have a nice interior and then the art is very bland or very unsophisticated, that also break the illusion of a good home. So I would say that the curation of the art, and it doesn't have to be curated by some art curator. It can be corny things that are private, but when people buy new corny things, then it's terrible. That can destroy the project. So I choose to skip the house.
I agree because the house is just a shell, right? You live most of the time inside and then you look outside to the garden. So yeah, I like that approach. But I also really like the simplicity of the floor plan that in the Ingzo house. If I can't pronounce it.
It's fine.
But anyway, I looked at the floor plan. I started as a residential architect, and a lot of architects tend to make very elaborate floor plans. and all the extra space you don't need. But I like the way it's so minimalist, but then the texture of the materials that you use. Even the entry, when you enter, it's not a huge entrance, but it goes straight to the view of your open dining room, right? It's a very livable house and not fancy at all, but it's very sophisticated. I guess it's kind of Swedish, typical Swedish home. Is that, well, not Swedish, but Scandinavian architect, right? Like what type of,
Mm.
what aesthetic is it exactly?
Well, some people call it Japandi.
Actually, you're right. It does have Japanese garden influences. Yeah.
They call it, but it's almost like a slur when people say it here because we think it's so annoying. Like, Japandi, like, what are you talking about? But it's true. We have something, there's some aesthetic with Scandinavian and Japanese modern architecture. I think there's some vibe, there's something going on. There's also something similar in the, I guess, in the cultures where you can lose face and things like that. That's Swedish as well as Japanese. Like, people are very calm here and very polite, and they like to not do conflicts openly and things like that. So I think there is a connection, but also this idea that you can have nice materials, but you need to dial down like the different things that you do to create calmness and a sense of wholeness. So I think that's true with that project as well. Now, with any kind of Swedish or Scandinavian summer house, you need to be careful with the square meter. It's expensive, and a lot of times the actual plan on the site doesn't allow for more, like the zoning, you would call it, doesn't allow for more. So this house has a maximum of 140 square meters, I think, in the zoning. So if you want all those rooms, you have to be careful and do every room just as good and just as big as you need. So sometimes when you look at American plans, we're like baffled by how big the main, like the primary bedrooms would be. We're just like 10 feet around the bed on each side. Is just crazy to us, like how big some things are in the US when we look at our plan.
You know
And
what they call them, right? You know what they call them?
you mean like Mac
McMansions.
mansions? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's funny. But it's a different, I mean, it's a different game, like trying to
Yeah,
do
yeah,
those houses and create these
yeah, yeah.
small, it's a bit like cabin life sometimes, these houses. So but imagine when you're on a sleeper train, everything's really tiny, right? But everything's taken care of, and you feel cozy and you feel at home. And I mean, if you make a summer house that's like a cheap sleeper train, that would be way, way too compact, right? But I mean, you don't have to go and do everything big. So
And also, one of the projects that struck me that I saw in the publication was your laden shed, the shed that you created. Can you talk about that? Because it was like interesting that you use different shutters and it's so diverse and it was published, right? Like, I mean, what was special about the laden that caught their eye in terms of, I liked it because it is, first of all, you had a physical model that you created. As an architecture student, we appreciate that, right? I mean, I went to school in the 90s.
yeah, me too. Yeah, it was all about models back then. I miss that a lot, actually. But it takes so much time to do them usually. So we end up, we can do 10 iterations on a 3D model when you do one physical model, but we really ought to be doing more like sketch models. Remember back in architecture school where you did a sketch model, you were just cutting some pieces and you used some tape and it was quick and you ended up with something you might not have thought of. That was brilliant. Like there was some randomness to that and a lot of soul into that process. So no, but the ladam, that means like barn or shed. And so it is interesting because it's replacing an old, basically a very simple shed that's just a protection for the machinery that you would have at a fruit, like this apple orchard that it's built in. And then our client asked us to, which is, he's also a good friend of everyone in the office, and he asked us to do something that would be really spectacular, really interesting, and would get published worldwide. And we thought of what that could be that could actually also fit into the countryside. And we spent a lot of time sketching on what sort of a contemporary, simple, basic, but yet very beautiful and refined thing could be. And ended up with this project after all those things. And what's interesting with it catches everyone's eye, I think, but actually it also blends in quite well on the site. So it's sharp in the lines and everything, but the horizontalness of the tilted wooden slats, that's the facade. The horizontal lines kind of work in the landscape, and there's something about it that makes it look like the typology is old, but the detailing is somehow new, but it's simple. Those things just made it into a hit. I mean, I think, I don't know, sometimes some things that we do, we are really proud of them and we publish them and nothing happens. And then some other things you publish and they just go almost viral. And I think, you remember that song from, like that old song, like Hey Ya? Remember Hey Ya? Like, Hey, yeah. I mean, you know that song? That's just a super big hit. I'm not saying Laudan was a big hit like that, but when they were in the studio, before they released that song, how sure were they that was going to be a global phenomenon that people would be singing it for 100 years? I mean, they probably thought maybe, like maybe this will catch on. And it's funny how Laudan was like our mini moment of something that became a little bit famous. And so that
That caught
question,
my eye too. I looked at
mm,
all of your projects and I was like, I gotta ask about this house.
uh-huh.
It's like something that went viral, right? Like
Yeah.
you wonder what it is. And I mean, I saw the photos and I mean the light treatment during different times of the days and just the simplicity of it all. It's very calming. But yeah, congrats on that one, by the
Thank
way.
you. I think there's something about some songs or some pieces of art or something that if they're bite size, like you can understand them. Like sometimes when you see a big complex Olson Kundig project and it's got all these different things going on, it's beautiful and it's got 5 different tectonic themes and a lot of nice materials. It's all blend together perfectly, but it's quite big. Then it's more like a giant thing that you have to appreciate in pieces, right? This thing is small. You can understand when you see the pictures, you get it, and then when you look harder, closer, then you understand that there is complexity to it. So I think that's good with that project. Maybe all projects should be like that. They should be relatively simple and then contain complexities. I mean, I think that's a good recipe anyway. Works a lot of times.
So, what are your favorite projects that you've worked on? I mean, you've done so much. Is there one standout project that you're like, oh, I want more of this?
There is an interesting typology that we end up with when we're in landscape where there's a lot of elevation or different heights, and that's my project that's called Solviken, which is this house that stands like in the forest on green pillars or columns. So it's a bit like California house that's on the side of Los Angeles or something, where the house is elevated up, and I like that a lot. And then Ingve is the same. So the Ingve house, it's also built on a little sort of mound, and it's got one part which is sticking out, and under you have this elevated thing where you're above the vegetation and the forest there. And I think that's great. When you can do that, that's amazing. Like we're doing a project now in the U.S. Virgin Islands, it's going to be on Water Island outside of St. Thomas, and we have a lot of elevation there. It's going to be our buildings are like different bungalows placed in the sort of semi-jungle, or whatever you call it there. And that's going to be super interesting to see how that works. The renders are looking amazing. I think just height differences and everything is just so nice. Like most of my buildings are placed on flat land because that's how it looks around here. But when we have some elevation, it's great. So that's what I want to do more.
I'll make sure to check it out because I'm now obsessed with all of the work because I just want to
Thank
live
you.
in most of the houses. So my question is, as a somebody who started your practice,
Mhm.
you obviously did not go to business school, right?
No,
I mean,
no.
how did you manage transitioning from being an architect to also running a business? What were the challenges that you faced in general? And yeah, what
Mm.
was
That's a big question. It's many. I've never really discussed it with anyone, but people ask how it's going and how come we haven't laid off any people when almost every, I think, architectural firm in Scandinavia has had some problems at this point because of the inflation and things that have happened. So basically, what's happened is that banks have had, it's much harder to get a loan or to get financing for a project now, and that's why most projects are standing still. And a lot of architectural offices are maybe halved in size now, and that hasn't happened to us. And I think part of the reason is that we're catering to people who don't need to borrow money in the bank. So I think one of my parts of the success is that we've specialized in clients with more money than the average family, which in just that statement, I think in our culture is almost heretical, that you would be focusing on solving rich people's problems. But it's true. I saw a meme the other day was like, solve rich people's problems, they pay better or something. And I think that's just one of the things that's made it a little bit easier for us. But in order to do that, you have to know them and you have to know what they want and understand why they would want to give their money to you. And that's the next like few questions maybe. So that's one thing. And then I think I've always focused on getting excellent relationships with my clients. I think that's super important to really get to know them, respect them. Don't get overly private with them. That's not what they want, but they do want you to feel close. So we follow the project, we defend our projects from everyone. And I think in architecture, I think the only people who are truly interested in the whole project and want the sum of the project to be great are the architects. And I think the architects are even protecting the project from the client. I mean, one of the biggest enemies of a good project is the client, because the client will have different ideas. The clients will go on vacation, or they will have some problem, or they will want to fix things that don't need fixing. And they want you as an architect to actually say no to them at the right places. And you need to know when you can play those cards. And that's just something I was always practicing on, because I was doing it from when I was really young. But I think that social thing is important. So bad news to introverts, it's not easy to actually run a practice if you're not prepared to talk, to call, to get a little bit intimate in your discussions with your clients. So get to know your client really well. And then, of course, you have to be cheeky enough to ask for a lot of money for what you're doing. And it's funny how there's this one, if I can just go ahead and talk about different things, I would want to say that thing, being able to actually charge money for your work, there's a few like counterintuitive things about that. So one thing is, if you charge more money, they will respect your work more, because they have paid a higher price. So they assume the quality is higher. So if you do sketches and go, I'm doing this for you for free, they're not going to even respect it. Like if they pay $10,000 for an initial design, they're not going to just throw that in the trash and go, well, then maybe we won't do that. They'll look at it and go, these guys actually worked on this and I paid for it. So, this is interesting. I'm going to start with the things that my architects thought of, So that's one thing. Another thing that has to do with that is the same. If you're setting up the office and you're dealing with people who are prepared to invest a lot of resources in your work, you can't have IKEA mugs on the table and have a dirty guest bathroom in the office and have cheap things around you. What kind of quality lawyer or quality restaurant would have crappy things and crappy graphic design? And so you have to make sure. And it's funny because actually it would be the opposite. Like if you're smart as a client, I suppose you could go into the architect's office and go, why do they spend money on all these things? Why do I have to pay for all their stuff? Like, it'd be better if they were frugal. But it's not true. You shouldn't be showy or fancy, but you need to be quality aware. So if you have, talking about that Fika, that coffee shop the other, if you serve coffee to a client who's paying $10,000 or 20,000 euros for a couple of A3s that you've done on a model, you better have nice coffee to them, because you care about detailing, right? You're interesting quality, the experience matters. So in that meeting, there's got to be good coffee. Why would you respect someone who doesn't care about those things? So I believe in kind of creating an atmosphere of intentional high quality stuff with my clients for the whole experience. And I think that's very important. It might sound, if you're a young person who listens to this, it might sound like we're flashy guys.
No, not at all.
We have simple
Not at
stuff here.
all.
We just have high
Absolutely,
quality stuff.
100%.
Mm.
Yeah. Because, like, I have an experience. I went to visit a client in California. My mother in law's husband is from California. And he's like, oh, there's a cheap Airbnb down the street. But I didn't listen to him because I don't want my client picking me up in the cheap Airbnb, because they're older generation, they still see me as the bootstrapper entrepreneur. And I said, thanks for the offer, but I booked myself in the fanciest hotel because I don't want my client to pick me when he asks me where I'm staying. I'm like, I'm here at the whatever, the nicest hotel. Like, I get it. Like a German architect who's a friend of mine also has a really fancy coffee machine and a really nice car. He got a really nice car because he deals with all these residential clients that pay millions. He can't pick them up in
No, that's for sure.
on the Civic.
Yeah. You need that. And it's just a question of respecting also the situation and not showing up in broken shoes where everyone else has nice suede Esperandillos. But it's not about it's like when you put on clothes. If you're dressed too formally, it's not great either. You have to just strike the tone that's right for the situation. So if you want to start with clients who demand high quality, you got to work with quality. That being said, I could have a simple piece of old IKEA furniture here if I can explain to my client that it's a special piece, that it's designed by someone that I like, that there's a reason for it. It doesn't have to be gold and diamonds and Swarovski, and then these things are like are cheesy. So maybe the most expensive hotel is not necessary, but I mean a nice one is for sure something you need to do. Also, it's about self-respect. Like if I start a new sport, I always get the right gear for the sport. Otherwise, it feels corny to do it. And I think you perform better in the right gear. Like I just think that works like that.
So I appreciate what you said, and it hits all the spots. A lot of architects are introverts because they're creatives, especially here in the US. All they want to do is work on their computers and forget about business development, right? Project delivery is their focus, and they don't have time to do the things. Second, the value of the architect. I don't know what it's like in Sweden, but in the US, we're not paid as much as other professions. So again, really evaluate what you're worth and sharing that with your client is really important, right? Like really, like if you charge very little, how can they respect you? So my question for you is in Sweden, is there a culture of burnout in architecture, burnout and low pay? Because everyone else in the world, that's what they're talking about. I know in Sweden, people really focus on work-life balance. And I didn't even ask you about this lagom concept.
That's interesting. Yeah, we do have a concept. It's like not too much, not too little concept, which is what we try to apply to a lot of things. But I think even if you work less hours and you have a lot of parental leave and stressed out about healthcare and things like you have in the US, these problems, I still think people can burn out because you are just overloaded with too many streams at the same time. I think burnout has a lot to do with having to switch focus too much during the day. And I think the cell phones and all the emails and everything is just making it a lot easier to just burn out. I think you're dealt whatever your, I mean, in my opinion, and I try to live by this and tell my guys in the studio the same thing. You only have like a few playing cards every day that you pay. So if you're having a coffee and a client texts you, it costs something to take a look at that text and read it and then go back to drinking coffee. That's a cost. If you run out of energy cards to pay for all that during the day, then you're in trouble because then you're tearing down your defenses. So I try to encourage people to focus on one thing at a time. Even though it's really, I mean, when I was started, probably when you started school as well, and when I started, when I was working the first offices I worked at, I mean, there were emails, but you could basically tell the client, I'm sending that next week, and during the weekend, you didn't look at your work email ever, and you just slower at that time. And I think it worked better. On the other hand, there are lots of things that are much better now with like the digital tools working much better. A lot of things are a lot smoother now. So we're very tech positive. We try to work with new tech. We work with AI if it's possible. We work with the latest CAD software. We do a lot of 3D work, a lot of VR. We like all those things, but I don't like the high bandwidth kind of multiple stream type work that we have to do where you have to there's just too much going on at the same time. So if we can, but I think burnout is an issue in this country as well, even though we have less because of all the security networks that we have that you don't have maybe in some other countries.
If you're running a growing architecture firm, you're probably not short on projects, you're short on people. Talent shortage is real. Finding and retaining skilled professionals takes time. Meanwhile, deadlines keep getting closer. And when you're balancing growth with quality, it gets harder to maintain your project standards as the work piles up. We are here to bridge the gap. We provide qualified architecture staff on demand so you can scale your delivery without compromising quality. That's what MGS Global Group does. Whether you're overwhelmed with construction documentation, need BIM support, or your internal systems just aren't built for this level of growth, our team plugs in seamlessly. Think of us as an extension of your in-house team without the long hiring process. And because we work across time zones, your projects keep moving even after your office closes for the day. If your timelines are starting to feel stretched and your team's at capacity, visit mgsglobalgroup.com. We can get started in 24 hours. We're here to help you scale smarter and deliver faster with quality, consistency, and peace of mind. Speaking about AI, what are your thoughts on it and what AI tools are you using?
My thoughts on it is that it started for me more as a joke when people started talking about it, was usually just fake stuff. The first web-based design tools were based on really old models that worked really badly. And we even did a research project for a big investment firm where we were chosen as one of the evaluators of different AI tools. And this was about 1 year ago. We were not impressed by what you could do at that time. But during the last maybe 6 months, some of the tools have become kind of okay. So we're using one tool for post production where we can take a render out of Enscape and do a lot of the post work through the engine. I wish I knew what the engine was called. That would have been much better for the podcast. But we can add in the show notes later. Yeah, but then, and also I use, and the others also use ChatGPT and Grok for like business things, like touching up emails, communicating with our Italian counterparts, doing accounting things. That is just great how we can use it. So it's integrated into our workflow in that sense, but I think we're only just in the start. When it comes to the architectural tools though, a lot of like 95% of what I see on YouTube, we research this. I even have one person in the studio whose job it is to research new tech for architecture that has to do with AI. So that's how serious we're taking it. And we're regularly reviewing it. But I got to say, for example, I mean, ChatGPT, there are some guys who can do demos where they show how somehow from a 2D drawing, they can make like a 3D image. I think all that's just liquid. It's garbage. What the engine can produce is just garbage at this point. It can look good to an untrained eye, but it's like AI music sounds good to someone who's an idiot in music, but when you play it to someone who actually knows anything about music, they're just kind of shaking their heads. And I think it's kind of the same with architecture. It will be good. Once we can get a tool that can actually do something in 3D that makes sense, it will be amazing. But I haven't seen that yet. Now it's all about images.
I wrote a research paper on AI for architects. I reviewed 50 AI tools.
Oh, yeah.
I'll send it over and you rated them. And there's no one tool that can do, because I dedicated 2 people for 10 months just to research.
Amazing.
Because my company, I own MGS Global Group. We do architecture, drafting, renderings. That's what my business does. We do all that. So I was looking for tools that can help me and the clients. But there are very good tools, but not one to do everything.
No, yeah.
So I can send that over to you if you want.
Thank you. That'd be interesting to see.
Research report.
But I think I'm old. I think I'm maybe a little. I'm usually very tech positive, but I'm maybe just subconsciously being protective about our creative work in a way. I gotta say, the stuff that comes out of Midjourney that some people are doing is truly like, some of it's really divine, especially when it's not trying to mimic things that already exist, because it's not great at that. But when it's doing things that maybe you can't think of that's interesting. The work is fascinating, and I'm looking forward to the tools becoming better and to using the good tools that you have found, because I think it's not really a threat to us, because we almost always feel like we wish we would have been able to do one more iteration. So if the tool can help us, the quality of the work will be better. And who will benefit from that? Of course, we will, because it will benefit our clients. So I think it will be an awesome time in the future when we can do all these things together with the AI, but maybe not yet.
Wow, that's amazing. It's good that you're AI curious, right? Because I went to an AI conference and they said, if firms don't use AI, RIP, rest in peace. Anyway,
Yeah.
so I have so many more questions to ask you, but I'm very mindful of the time. I know that you've tried to, right now you're working into like multifamily homes now, right? Like your hygrometer
Yeah.
project.
Yeah.
I mean, is this also client driven because the clients come to you and it's a natural progression to expand? However, the architecture looks very, I know it's a Johan Sundberg project when I look at it,
Thank you.
right?
I was hoping we wouldn't be just squandering our reputation there. But it's really hard to transition into housing projects like that with multi-family homes, because the architecture that we do is prohibitive in terms of costs. And when you multiply that into several homes, it becomes even worse for the developer. So it's hard for the developer to make money with our projects, because basically for the normal market, or this kind of higher end, the middle part of the market, it's hard to charge for all the extra things that we love. But we're getting there. We're learning a lot from it. And it's of course where we want to go. I think I can do, and our office can do, more complex, bigger projects and remain steadfast when it comes to the type of architectural qualities that we really enjoy and want to create. So we have done like a spa. We're doing a spa for a hotel, a couple of different spas for hotels where we have this special knowledge that came out of the private houses, but it's been developing in some projects so that we're doing. And then it would be super awesome to do a public building like a church or a convention center or something where there are different layers of users and not just private users and their friends maybe coming to visit. I would like to work more on that.
Yeah, it seems like it's going to be happening because you're moving from sheds to houses to multi-family now to pause. So my question for you is, I know you said in terms of project and practice, you mentioned that you've kept your firm intentionally small. What will happen when you get all these major projects? Are you open to expanding?
When you start with 5 people, you go, could we be 10? And when it's 10, you go, we need someone here to help these guys because they have a lot of interesting work. And then it kind of grows. So it grows like that. But I think there's a few points where there's like a breaking point where you have to change strategies completely. And I actually think around 16, it's what you can do when you have this master kind of apprentice relationship with the studio that I have now. And you have to go into, or you could call it like it's a little bit like architecture school where I'm the professor or the, I don't know, guy is coming in from outside to teach, like it's called in the US. But anyway, I think that works now. And then I have some work groups that I just go between work groups and sketch and help them. And then I meet clients and that's what I do. So I work a lot like I used to work in School of Architecture as someone. The only difference is it's not suggestions when it's coming from me. It's orders. when when I make a sketch, it's not just maybe you could think about
How
this.
honest you are, you. You're so honest. That's awesome.
But it's, of course,
Yeah.
even if I say, I have to follow this idea that I have, there's lots of room for. I think if you want to make your studio grow, you have to just let go. You just have to let go and trust people. I mean, otherwise it doesn't work. So you have to think of it.
I started by myself and then I hired 2 people and then 2 became 8. 8 became 10 and then I got stuck with 10 people from 2008 to 2019. I had 10 people from 2019 to 2025. Now I have 60.
Oh, wow, that's impressive. Wow. So you've gone through that journey where because I have to create satellites somehow of senior management who can do what I do or even better than I do.
As a business owner, and I was an architect, now I do architecture support. People started knowing about me, but I wasn't capable of growing the business because I don't have a business background, right? I knew how to manage 8 people,
Yeah.
but I had to hire a COO when I grew to 60 and we're growing.
Yeah.
So that's why I was asking you because you can't say no to the projects when people come and they start wanting more and more. So
Yeah.
it's just interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Interesting perspective, right?
But if you have this guy at the middle who's, I mean, all my staff basically are students of mine or friends of theirs, or people that we hired because we really think they're super good. Some people moved here to work here from other countries.
God, congratulations.
Thank you. No one ever quit. Like there's one guy who quit and I'm still working with him on one of the spas. So I feel like it's a little bit like a family. I'm not saying you can't quit here, but it's just people don't. I mean, I'm surprised no one's quitting. I would.
Is it an order you can't quit?
I don't know, but I think just something working here, or maybe it's just worse in other places. Anyway, what they're doing is what I'm thinking is how can we? Because there are a lot of I think there are a lot of architects that I know that are older, and I can look at their work and I see their work was really sublime, really inspired, and then at some point they let go of the company, turn the company into a larger consulting studio. And a lot of times, like some qualities get lost there and just not there anymore. Some really good offices that I've been following, like they've stayed at around 2030 and are really good there. So that's what I'm thinking now. But when I'm like you, I'm going up to 30. I'll be going 40. I'll probably be going.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because no, but it's interesting because you start with one project and then I think entrepreneurship is really a long game and you really need to be diligent and really just have a lot of grit and
Yeah.
you can't quit, right? Because things could get hard sometimes. So really think long game. And it seems like you started in 2008 and 2025, you're just expanding. And that's, I mean, if there's something that as we are towards the end of our podcast, I just wanted to ask you, what advice would you give to any architect, young architect just getting out of architecture school?
Yeah.
in terms of how they see the world, their future, their career, because things are very difficult now, right? Things
Yeah.
have changed. So, what advice would you give to a young person who is just graduating architecture school?
If they want to start doing their own projects, it's like any sport or any musical instrument or something, you have to practice by doing as much as you can. So get out and do some projects, even if they're not great in the beginning. Do them, try to deliver, try to establish rapport with your clients, with their networks. I see some young architects who are starting up businesses who spend a lot of time networking and then spending time on LinkedIn. I wouldn't spend a lot of time there. I would spend a time with my clients, spending time on my work sites, spending time in the office, drawing, designing, learning the core basics. It's like, I mean, if you want to learn to play golf, it's all about how many hours and how many shots you take. And it's the same with architecture. If you are an introvert, it can work for you. I just said it's bad news to introverts. It's not true. I have some guys who are, I have some friends who are introverts, and when they speak, everyone listens because they're kind of quiet in the meetings. So, so you can do something with that. You can work with that, but you need to, if you don't think it's fun presenting and working with people out, then you need someone else to be the front person, I think. So that's that you have to learn, you have to get to know yourself, I think, as well. Because that's one of the things of being out in the beginning, being on your build sites, being on you learn where you when you feel provoked, you learn when you are happy, what you like to do, and that's in the end, in the long run. If it's a long game, like you said, which is true, it's all about having a long plan and sticking to it and having the grit. Then you need to know what sparks joy for you. And for me, it's always been the client relationship and being on the build site and create, starting up projects and things. And then it's easy because it doesn't feel like work when you're having fun. There's one more thing I'd like to say, maybe, and that's that in middle life, it can become challenging to work as hard as you do as an entrepreneur because it feels like work never ends. And it's much tougher when you have kids and you have commitment and the sums on the bills and the sums on the whatever you're doing in the business is bigger. So that's some different challenges halfway too. But maybe that's a topic for another podcast. But I think you have to set it up in the beginning so you're not setting up for eventual failure. So some people work too hard as well. You have to find some kind of work-life balance where you think it's fun. And besides, I mean, I always go on trips where kind of companies from Italy invite us to go on a factory tour. I always go because I think it's super inspiring. And when I come back, I don't feel like I lost time. I think I gained a lot of like inspiration from drinking wine with those guys and seeing something else. So you gotta. That's what I do. I try to travel a little bit and have fun with my clients and with my people that deliver things for the companies and things like that. So striking up a good work-life balance there already from the start is setting up for success and not setting up for failure. So don't try too hard. And it's the same with golf, by the way. I'm thinking a lot about golf now because I'm going to go off play golf later. If you try too hard in sports or in music, you're going to fail. You need to somehow feel it when you're doing it. Then it works.
Johan, I'm learning golf too. I have my golf set over here. And I feel like every time I play, I feel like I'm a beginner every time, right? It's like having a beginner mindset, I suppose. Really just try to learn all the time, right?
It's humbling. Golf is humbling. Oh my God. But you can learn, like, I really want to draw a parallel to what we're talking about here because when you're learning golf and when you're learning to do your, like, the first years of architecture, like, my first years in the studio, I was doing crappy work because I needed the money. I was never invited to anything. No one even liked the nice things that I did. And nothing happened for a long time, like for several years. And then I hired like one guy, two guys, and then we got some recognition. And then I got recognition. I was elected like one of the 20 most promising young architects in Europe in 2010 or something. And then I was like, now it's finally starting to happen. And then after that, it was nothing. It's like nothing happened after that. And then I got to know some people here who are builders who wanted a younger architect to kind of do more fun things for them. And that's the builder that we did the lawn and shed for. And that happened and that didn't happen because of fame. That happened because of local recommendations in the community that I was in. So I think you need to realize that in the beginning, nothing's going to work. And then for a while, nothing's going to work after that. And then it starts. Wasn't it the same for you?
Yeah, it's my favorite quote. Yes, my favorite quote from Adam Grant. He's a organizational psychologist. You plant the seeds of greatness in your daily grind. you're just planting the seeds every day, and then later on it will just expand. That's why I didn't expect we'll be a team of 60, but when we're customer focused and client focused, then word of mouth comes and people want to work with you, and obviously you're serving more people. When you mentioned earlier that you're solving rich people problems, that's not only what you're doing as an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs provide jobs for 90% of the workforce. So we're also providing jobs for 16 of your employees, right? So that's what, yeah.
But in a sense, I also think that my team are devoting their lives and putting all their eggs in one basket because they're being here and they're not changing things. They're just being loyal to me and to the team. So I feel like I'm really privileged that they want to stay on here and explore the tasks that we're doing. And I feel really, if you have 16 guys and no senior management, you always feel like you're neglecting your children in a way, or your friends. And I'm really happy that they're not more pissed with me than they are. Because I'm constantly about doing the.
We have to have a separate conversation offline about that, because I also have a family and kids and husband and all that. So it's an interesting journey, but it can be done.
Yep, for sure it can. And it's a lot of fun, right? So,
Yeah, I love everything. I mean, sometimes I work a lot, sometimes I don't want to work, but it's something that I've built, right? Like you've built this. I mean, you're one of the top architects in Europe, I think, or in Sweden. In one in the bio that I read, you're like the top. So I mean, that's a huge accomplishment. From Did you ever think you were gonna be where you are right now when you started?
you know what? This is important. This is maybe a darker tone, but I was always, I always felt I had great potential to become something really important, in a sense that I could use my powers for a lot of things. And I felt like I was privileged with a lot of different talents, both socially, but I can also do design. And I've always, when I was younger, when I was like 10 years ago, before things started to become really good, I was very hungry and very angry that I didn't get further. And I still feel like there's a lot that I could have done better. With my team and my network, we could have done better. And I feel like sometimes I just want to scream it out and just go, I just want to push through and do more. And I think that hunger for me is paired with a lot of, like, I feel it's easy to get inspiration when someone talks about a project with me. I feel like I get a lot of ideas really quickly, and I'm frustrated not getting them out. So I actually have, in a sense, that drive, that urge I've always felt. So now it's a little bit easier because now I'm getting some of that recognition and I feel more satisfied in that way. But I think you need to maybe other when I like good architects, you need to be steadfast in that way. If you're too lean, if you, I said before, you need to be close to your clients. That's true, but you need to be able to say no to them. That's what they want to hear. They want you to tell them when their ideas are bad and show them better things and show them that it's possible, and just kind of, you want to pull. So if you're scared of that, then it's going to be hard. Like, you just have to, I suppose when you hire people, you want to hire people who have the spark and the grit and the kind of but that's paired with, for me, a lot of frustration and a lot of hunger. That keeps you, one way is to say it keeps you on the edge, but it's sometimes painful. I think a lot of architects, when you hear about the historical architects, a lot of them were kind of angry and frustrated their whole lives. Like the biggest one in Sweden, the old one, is Gunnar Asplund. He used to take pencils and shove them under his nails because he did that, like he had like a mental problem, like a tic, because he was so angry with and so frustrated when things didn't get done. So there's a dark side to that. I don't think you should do that. But I mean, it's, and talking about mental health and burnout, you need to know where your limits are, so it doesn't get too bad. Having some drive and some grit is great, and the hunger you have to endure.
Thank you so much, Johan. I really enjoyed our conversation,
Likewise.
and we covered a lot of things. I really yeah. So where can people find you? Are you on LinkedIn, Instagram?
We're on LinkedIn. My best channel is probably Instagram. So our Instagram account is very active, and everyone is welcome to contact me there, talk to me there, drop an email. I'm super allergic to LinkedIn, so I try not to hang out there. But we do have profiles there, so it's possible to reach me there. But I don't know. It's not. So that's what we're doing. Thank you so much. Nice to talk to you, Aya.
Nice chatting. Anyway, I know you're super busy. I think we'll drop this episode next week or so,
Awesome.
like in a couple of weeks, and then if there's anything you need help with, like talk about business separately, just as friends, let me know.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you so much. It feels awesome. This feels like therapy.
I like talking to people. It's like, I mean, yeah, and I like talking to entrepreneurs too because I started out with no business knowledge. I just had to really hustle, make a lot of mistakes, and
Yes,
here I
sure.
am, right?
Sure am.
So,
Same for me.
and I will send you those AI tools if you want. If I know a bunch of AI tools, Johan, if you're looking for anything, let me know because I can suggest a few. I'm not sponsored by them, but I've been experimenting a lot. So I know a few tools that can help because we're using them as well.
That sounds brilliant. If you want to share with any kind of research, your paper there or anything, that'd be awesome. And I can also tell you about the 2, 3 tools that we've found to be the best, so we can compare notes.
Okay, awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you, Johan. Have a great day.
Thank you. Nice talking to you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Architect My Business podcast. If you want more, head over to architectmybusiness.com for more episodes, show notes, and links to everything mentioned in this episode. Don't forget to catch our mini shows, Her Space, Ask Aya, and our main show, Architect My Business. If you enjoyed our episodes and want to hear more, please leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Your feedback really helps us grow. Stay tuned for the next episode. Bye!